My original intention for my Path of Exile 2 review series was to just do one about the early game, one about mid-game, and then one about the later parts, sort of the end-game experience too. But I've played enough now that I've got some more thoughts about the general state of Path of Exile 2, so I really wanted to talk about that. And while I can tell you I'm having a lot of fun with it all around, there are some points that I wanted to bring up, particularly as I started in second character and had a dramatically different starting experience. Hello, this is Robert with Society Case Files, and if you like this kind of content and you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Anyway, beside that, let's just dive right into the content. Path of Exile 2 has been out on early access for about 2 weeks at this point. The reviews are starting to change a little bit, at least the tone of them. They are at very positive on Steam right now, and there's fewer of the "this is super hard" at the top of the review list, but people have replaced those with complaints about how the endgame works. Endgame is always something that starts as a major work in progress for games, though, so I'm not entirely sure they're really fair. As I think back on MMOs, single-player games, and just actually about every title I've ever played, the first 2 or 3 levels or zones, whatever you want to call them, are pretty polished for the most part, and they're fun. Devs give access to those earlier on, and they themselves spend more time on them. They're probably the parts that are done first. I'm thinking of games like The Secret World, where the New England zone is just incredible and well thought out. And by the time you get to Transylvania, it almost seems like a different game. There's just so many problems, and it's just shorter and on and on and on. Sometimes game developers manage to take some lessons learned and fix all of the endgame stuff, and sometimes they don't get the time to do that. However, I have absolutely no fear that Path of Exile 2 endgame won't turn out fun. I mean, they have been doing this for a long time. Path of Exile 1's been going forever. So I think that with this early access, they're going to get tons of data and feedback, and they'll make the necessary changes to make it an exciting experience all around. I think it'll be something that's polished, but right now I'm absolutely guaranteeing that it's rough and still in its early phases of being shaped into what we'll see it in the future. Before I get into my new character, though, I did want to take a moment to talk about the microtransactions because they just stood out in a major way. I had a little bit of premium currency for the early access payment I made. I think I had 300. So I went in, found some stash tabs that seemed like nice to haves, and they didn't cost that much. So I was spending like 10 points here, 20 points there, whatever it was. Then I saw a Skeletor outfit, and I was like, ooh, I'll fork over for that. How much is it? So it's 450 points, whatever those mean in their gaming world, right? So it was a bundle, by the way. You're saving about 160 points, I think, 110, something like that. It didn't matter because I thought it seemed reasonable until I hopped over to buy that premium currency. And I found that 450 points equals $45 for cosmetics. I just did a video for Vermintide 2 and Darktide talking about their cosmetics a little bit, and the most expensive thing on Vermintide 2 is a bundle that releases outfits for all of the characters, and that was only $29. So I think that charging the same amount for a brand new game is a little outrageous. I mean, I'm sure people are buying this stuff, but my goodness, that's rough. Then there's the supporter packs. If you buy the Thaumaturge of the Veil pack, it's $160 to buy, or $130 if you do an upgrade. And you do get 1,300 points going along with that, along with a ton of other stuff. And I guess it's just like buying the points separately, so you could buy your Skeletor outfit and a bunch of other cool things. Or actually not a bunch, maybe 2.5 to be perfectly honest. But I'm not sure I'd call it a high value. I mean, I don't really value cosmetics as much as I used to, I guess, especially when I saw these prices. But if you are going to buy points, I guess it is better to do one of these supporter packs than to just try to buy the points outright. There are lower tiers. One costs only $30 as an upgrade, and you get 300 points and a handful of things. Then in the middle, you can drop $70. But all around, the prices of these microtransactions are just a little rich for my blood. Even on sale, you're looking at $17 to $20 for a small piece of cosmetic, like some wings or a weird crab on your back. So I don't know. It's crazy. I know It's going to be free to play, so they got to make their money somehow, but I'm 99% sure that there's going to be some kind of battle pass thing on top of these outrageous prices. And it's on freaking early access. They could technically change anything at this point, either reducing the cost of these items, making them less appealing. I don't know. I won't harp on it anymore, but ouch. So let's move on. I want to talk about a very different early experience I had by changing character classes. I went ahead and tried the Ranger, and when I first started the game, right off the bat, I had leaned toward this character, but tried the Witch instead. And after I read a ton of reviews, I recognized that the game promised to be hard, so I did a lot of grinding with the Witch, and that said, I still did die quite a lot, as I was kind of struggling to get the feel of it. You know, basically the fundamentals of doing damage, controlling the crowds, taking down bosses, all of that stuff. And I did do it, but mostly because I persevered and I kept nudging my level a little higher than the zone's monster level. Minions just aren't quite there yet, in my opinion. Certainly not in the early game. And this is after I put quite a few points into boosting their health and damage. I mean, I'm fighting stuff roughly my level, and these mobs, my mobs, are going down very, very quickly. They just don't quite have the punch necessary to warrant having them when there are other powers that do more all around. And particularly after I played the Ranger and was just draining bosses like it was no big deal, it became a lot more apparent. I thought I needed to do a bunch of grinding with the new character, but honestly, I was wrong. I managed to take things on that were my level and even a little higher, especially once I got a couple of key powers like Escape Shot. I'm not key to try another class right now, but if you're struggling to play the game and this is the only character you've tried, then give another one a go. If any of them struck your fancy, then give it a try. There's a chance that it might be better optimized right now, and you might have a more, I don't necessarily want to call it an easier experience, but it might be a more enjoyable one. There are a bunch of powers that have yet to be released, and even some new classes. We're still in the early stages of the game. I really want to emphasize that. For my buck, I found that the Ranger was just a lot more entertaining than the Witch as far as play is concerned. While I really, really love just how vile that Witch can be, because she's just a totally horrible person and it's really funny, I just didn't find her powers to be all that effective. And I did branch into the elemental path with her, and I think that was probably a mistake. She could use them, certainly. I mean, you could pretty much do whatever you want, but I suspect that's more of the purview of the sorceress, that being elementals, elemental powers. At least I hope so, because using Frost Nova with the Witch to do some crowd control took multiple casts to freeze enemies, whereas with my Escape Shot, I'm freezing huge groups instantaneously. I don't have to cast it 3-4 times to knock them down. This all leads me to a key point. I likely did everything wrong with the Witch because my theory crafting sucked. However, this addresses some of these negative reviews that you see. The game doesn't give you much in the way of guidance. It just throws the book open and says, do what you like. There aren't any warnings of, ooh, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure that you want to take that power? It's not really on your path. It doesn't have suggested powers, and it would kind of be nice if it said, hey, this is a standard path that we see for the Witch. And what you're doing is probably going to be a little bit harder. And that's part of the thing that's going to really be a problem for casual players, because unless they go to YouTube and look up builds and basically just follow guides to make a character, just trying to do it on your own is going to be a lot harder than it would be in, say, Diablo 4, because that is a much more curated experience. And anyway, that's the big difference between my playthroughs, is that when I first started, obviously I didn't know anything about the game and I was just going in blind. Now that I've moved over to the Ranger, I had some more experience. That probably helped make it easier too. The primary powers are the only ones I really focused on with the Ranger, and with the Witch, I went far afield. And all this to say, I'm continuing to enjoy Path of Exile 2 quite a lot, in fact, even more so now that I've tried another character that just works better for me. I don't feel the fatigue of constantly having to struggle through tons of mobs just to progress the story a little bit, or get to a boss, find out I can't beat it, and then have to go back out and find more mobs to kill just so that I can get that one more power that will allow me to take down the guy that just took me down. The Ranger isn't quite as bound by the grind to get through every key aspect, and that's been seriously nice. I still cautiously recommend the game, but it's definitely not for everyone. It's not a casual experience. So if you're not the kind of person that wants to go and hunt down a build online, or you aren't really interested in theory crafting, Path of Exile 2 might be something you want to pass on. If you do enjoy those things, or you don't mind following a streamer's suggestion, then you could probably have a good time with it. I think it's got a lot to offer. An excellent example of what I've been talking about is the boss fight I'm going to show right now. I fought him once and might have been able to take him with a little bit more caution and patience, but I did run out of my potion. So I went back to the camp. I used a bunch of my resources that I was hoarding. I upgraded some gear. I upgraded my potion, and then I was able to easily take him down without hardly using any health products at all. It was kind of nuts. In fact, it was so much easier, it kind of made me laugh. The game requires you to tinker. It wants you to really optimize your gear and think about your skills and use them appropriately. And based on the current reviews that are at the top of the list, that only gets more intense the longer you play. So think about that as you decide whether or not you're going to give Pillar of Exile to any of your time. That's probably enough rambling about this one today. Let me know if you're playing Path of Exile 2. Are you enjoying it? What class are you playing right now? How far are you along? Hit me up with a comment, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, this is Robert with Society Case Files, signing off.